Let me tell you a story about one of the most shocking financial scandals of the 21st century. Rajat Gupta was the former CEO of McKinsey, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world. And he sat on the boards of companies like Goldman Sachs and Procter & Gamble, which means he had influence over a huge part of the global economy. And by 2008, his net worth was estimated at around $130 million. For regular people like you and me, this guy had already won the game of life, but he still wanted more. And in 2008 and 2009, he couldn't resist. He got involved in insider trading, which basically means he was secretly passing confidential information to his friends so they could make money on the stock market. And that decision ended up costing him everything. Rajat ended up going to prison, lost tens of millions of dollars, and completely destroyed his reputation. How does someone who already has so much risk everything just to get a little more? It's because money is so much more about psychology and behavior than most of us realize. And if you're trying to build a better financial future, the road you have ahead is filled with traps and thousands of people just like Rajat. And that's exactly why I want to walk you through the 6 most important lessons from the psychology of money that can help you navigate that road more carefully. Lesson 1. No one's crazy. Most people think that when it comes to money, there are smart decisions and stupid decisions, and that anyone who makes bad financial choices is simply irrational or careless. But one of the most important lessons from the psychology of money is that no one is actually crazy when it comes to money, because every financial decision someone makes perfect sense to them based on their own experiences, background, and the environment they grew up in. Someone who grew up during a financial crisis, watching their parents lose everything, will naturally be far more conservative and afraid to invest. While someone who grew up in a booming economy, surrounded by success stories, might take on much more risk without thinking twice. And both of these people can look at the exact same investment opportunity and come to completely different conclusions, not because one of them is wrong, but because they are shaped by entirely different past experiences. Lesson 2. Luck and risk are siblings. When we look at successful people, it's very easy to assume that their results are purely the outcome of hard work, intelligence, and good decisions. But one of the most overlooked facts is that luck and risk always play a much bigger role than we like to admit. And the problem is that we usually only see one side of that story. For every person who became incredibly wealthy by taking a big risk at the right time, there are many others who took a very similar risk and failed. But we rarely hear about them, because success is visible while failure is often hidden, which creates the illusion that outcomes are more predictable and controllable than they actually are. Lesson 3. Never enough. One of the most dangerous traps when it comes to money is not a lack of income, but the feeling that whatever you have is never quite enough. Because the moment people reach a certain level of wealth, their expectations simply move with it, and what once felt like success quickly becomes the new normal. This is exactly what happened to Rajat Gupta. He had $130 million, but it still wasn't enough. That endless chase led him to take massive risks and ultimately lose everything. The truth is, one of the most powerful things you can do financially is to consciously decide what enough looks like for you, and actually stop when you get there. It might feel like you're giving up potential, and it definitely goes against everything you see online. But learning to say, "this is enough," is often the real key to becoming happy with money. Lesson 4. Wealth is what you don't see. When most people think about wealth, they picture visible things like expensive cars, luxury watches, or big houses. But real wealth is almost always invisible, because it's not about what you show, it's about what you don't spend. The money you don't see, the investments quietly growing in the background, the savings that aren't being touched, and the assets that continue to compound over time, that's what actually creates financial security, even though it's far less exciting and far less visible than the things people usually associate with being rich. Lesson 5. Compounding is magic, but requires patience. Compounding is often called the most powerful force in finance, but what makes it so difficult for most people is not understanding how it works. It's having the patience to actually let it work over long periods of time, because the results in the beginning are almost invisible and feel insignificant. When you invest small amounts consistently, the growth in the early years looks slow and sometimes even pointless, which is exactly why so many people quit too early, not realizing that the real power of compounding only shows up much later, when time has had the chance to multiply those small gains into something meaningful. Lesson 6. Freedom is the highest dividend. A lot of people think keeping a decent amount of cash in the bank is stupid, because you barely earn any interest, and you get FOMO when the market is doing great. But what they often overlook is that money sitting safely in the bank can create something even more valuable. Because the moment that saved money allows you to take a risk, like finally quitting a job you hate to start your own business, invest in yourself, or simply buy time to figure things out, the return on that decision can be far greater than any percentage you would have earned in the market, which makes freedom, once again, the highest dividend money can ever give you. And once you start to see money through this lens, you begin to realize that building wealth is much less about being smart with numbers and much more about being smart with your behavior and mindset. Stop chasing more and start focusing on patience, enough, and freedom. If you haven't read the book yet, I highly recommend it. It's one of the few finance books that actually changes how you think. Feel free to subscribe and leave a comment if there's any topic or book I should cover next.